You know, every once in a while, football gives us a story that just feels like something out of a movie. This is one of those stories. It's about a small city club from Galicia, Spain, that for one incredible decade stared down the biggest titans in the game and somehow kept on winning. This is the story of Súper Dépor.
And to really get what made this team so special, you've got to start with this question. Because the answer tells you everything you need to know about their spirit, their fight, and their insane ability to pull off the impossible.
So let's set the scene. The year is 2002, and it all boils down to one single game. A day that became so legendary in Spain, it even got its own special name, the Centenariazo.
Okay, so you have to understand the context here. It's absolutely everything. Real Madrid, the Galácticos, right, a team of global superstars, were celebrating their 100th birthday. And the Spanish Cup final was supposed to be the cherry on top of their huge party. And where was it being held? Oh, just in their own backyard, the Santiago Bernabéu. The cake was baked, the guests were there, the coronation was all set.
Except, somebody forgot to give Deportivo the memo. In front of a completely stunned Madrid crowd, they just ruined it. Goals from Sergio and Diego Tristan put them 2-0 up, and they held on to win 2-1. They literally walked into the biggest party in football history and walked out with the trophy. And just like that, the Centenariazo was born, the perfect name for a team of giant slayers.
But here's the thing. As amazing as that win was, it wasn't some random fluke. No way! It was the climax of years and years of struggle, of heartbreak, and of just pure resilience. To really get how they pulled it off, we need to rewind the clock. See, long before anyone called them Súper Dépor, they had a very different reputation. For decades, they were stuck with a nickname that, well, it kind of perfectly summed up just how unstable they were, the elevator team.
And yeah, they were called the elevator team for the most obvious reason you can imagine. They were constantly going up and then right back down. Up to the first division, down to the second. They could get to the penthouse, but they can never, ever stay there.
The weird part is, the club always had talent. We're talking legendary players like Luis Suarez. But the money problems were just crushing. Every time they got a great player, they had to sell him off just to keep the lights on. They could never build anything that lasted.
And then, things got so much worse. By the late 80s, the club wasn't just an elevator, it was in the basement. They fell all the way to the third division, drowning in a massive debt of 600 million pesetas. In fact, a single last-minute goal in 1988 is what literally saved them from falling even further. And that goal? Well, that turned out to be the turning point.
Because you know what they say about hitting rock bottom? There's only one way to go. And from those absolute depths, an incredible transformation started, an era that was going to change everything. A new president, Augusto Cesar Lendoro, came in with a vision. He hired an old club legend, Arsenio Iglesias, to manage the team. And then he made the two signings that changed history. He brought in two World Cup winning Brazilians, Bebeto, an absolute goal machine, and Mauro Silva, a rock in midfield. And almost overnight, the elevator team was gone. Súper Dépor had arrived.
And you could feel the difference immediately. I mean, pulling off a comeback like that against Real Madrid, that just showed everyone that the mentality was completely different now. In fact, that win kicked off an 18-season unbeaten streak against Madrid at their home stadium. The Riazor was officially becoming a fortress.
But of course, a great story is never that simple. The journey to the top for Súper Dépor really came down to two insane moments of drama. One of just soul-crushing heartbreak, and another of the absolute sweetest redemption.
Okay, so get this. It's 1994. They're only in their third season back in the top flight, and somehow they are on the verge of the impossible. They go into the very last game of the season needing just one win, at home, to be crowned the champions of Spain.
The game is a nail-biter. It's 0-0. The clock is almost at full time. And then, it happens. In the very last minute, Deportivo get a penalty. This is it. This is the Hollywood ending. One kick of the ball for a historic championship.
Their main penalty taker had already been subbed off, so a defender, Miroslav Jukic, has to step up. And the keeper saves it. The whistle blows, and the title is gone. Just like that. I mean, you can't imagine a more agonizing way to lose. It was just complete and utter devastation. But football finds a way. Redemption came just a year later, and you can't make this up. They're in the Spanish Cup final, it's tied 1-1, and then this biblical hailstorm starts. The game has to be called off.
They have to come back 3 days later just to play the last 11 minutes. And what happens? Minutes after the restart, Alfredo Centelena scores a header, and they win. They finally had their trophy.
And that cup win, it was like the floodgates just burst open. Súper Dépor wasn't just a good team anymore. They were a genuine force, not just in Spain, but across all of Europe.
So, let's fast forward 6 years from that gut-wrenching penalty miss. After all that rebuilding, all that fighting, the turn of the millennium was about to deliver their ultimate prize.
They actually did it. In the 1999-2000 season, Súper Dépor were finally crowned the champions of Spain. This team, with guys like the genius playmaker Jaumiña, the club icon Fran, and the lethal striker Roy Mackay, they conquered La Liga. They made their city, La Coruña, the second smallest city to ever have a league champion. Incredible.
But if you think winning the league was the peak, their most legendary moment was still to come. It's the 2004 Champions League quarterfinals. They're up against the defending champions, AC Milan. And after the first game in Italy, it's over, a 4-1 thrashing. No team in history had ever come back from a 3-goal deficit like that.
But for the second leg, they were back at their fortress, the Riazor. They needed a straight-up miracle. And the team they were facing? Just some guys named Maldini, Pirlo, and Kaká. The task looked completely and utterly impossible.
And then they delivered the miracle. 4-0. A 4-0 demolition. They didn't just beat the champions of Europe, they took them apart, piece by piece. To this day, it is one of the greatest, most unbelievable comebacks the sport has ever seen.
Now, like all great stories, the Súper Dépor era eventually came to an end. Those old financial troubles crept back in, and the giants of football reclaimed their thrones. But the legacy of what they did, that's forever. They proved that with the right spirit and a little bit of magic, the impossible is never truly impossible.
Which really leaves you with one last question, right? In a sport that's so dominated by a handful of super clubs today, why do these stories still mean so much to us? I think it's because Súper Dépor is the ultimate reminder that every now and then, for one shining, glorious moment, the underdog can have its day.